For this duration, we just ask if you would maybe go off camera, be muted for this presentation, and then we'll be able to have a full focus in on myself and the guest for today. So thanks once again for people that have been following along on the VMS Batch Milking and the whole series. We had a really good turnout back in January, and now we've come to our second portion of it. And, you know, when we talk about VMS, you know, within DeLaval, we talk about your VMS your way, and the way that the producer, that the farm takes our DeLaval VMS V300 robot and sets it up their way.
Yeah, open up or else I'm knocking down the door. Gonna make you wonder why you never tried before. You strike a match, start the fire, por favor. You can make it what you want. Go on. Make it what you want. You can make it. You can make it what you can make it. Make it what you want. You can make it. You can make it what you can make it. Make it what you want.
You know, and these farms that were featured there, they certainly did it their way, from a 2-robot facility in northern Alberta to a pair of 20 V300 operations. Yeah, they certainly did it their way. And, you know, when we talk about robotics and the options that are available for it, you know, we've talked a lot about in the past, you know, what you can do with the robot in the sense of traffic and how you set up your cows and that experience with voluntary milking. We've talked about free traffic. You know, and we've talked about guided traffic as well, guided traffic gaining even more popularity with its features. But now we can also offer VMS batch milking. And VMS batch milking is just yet another way that we can take our VMS V300 and meet the needs of the dairy and set up that facility. Because when people are looking at new facilities, you know, they're looking still at either conventional or robots. What should I do? And a lot of people like that conventional side, you know, when it comes to knowing the set times. We're going to start at 4 in the morning. We're going to end at a certain time. They know their cows are milked in the day. But they also look at robotic milking and the voluntary side of things, a 24-hour voluntary system where they can, you know, watch those cows perform in that sort of system. But it might not be that kind of lifestyle that they're looking for. Now we're seeing a gap in between, you know, the people that want conventional but robots within the system to bring some automation and, you know, some of that consistency of milking with robotics. So for us at DeLaval, the gap that we see that we can fill here is with VMS batch milking. So what we're doing is we're taking that schedule from conventional milking, those tasks that people like, and bringing our VMS V300 robot into their milking center to make VMS batch milking. So really, we're putting those two concepts together. So in this, you know, overhead, we can see that the VMS batch milking center is kind of like where your parlor or your rotary go. So a double 12 parlor right here. And then we can keep the rest of the barn in more of that conventional setup. So we know that staff knows how to bring cows to a holding area. Bedding can be done at the same kind of way, cleaning, that sort of thing. TMR, feed, all those things are certainly a benefit when you can combine these both of these systems. And so this is what it makes VMS batch milking an exciting opportunity. And it was an opportunity for, and Dr. Juan is with us. Dr. Juan Velez is with us from Rancho Pepper Dairy in Texas, and he is the Chief Agricultural Officer for Aurora Organic Dairy, and they own Rancho Pepper Dairy, as well as some other dairies within their organic milk business. Welcome, Dr. Juan, to our webinar.
No, thank you so much, Jason. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. And for giving me the opportunity to share our experiences with this, I believe, very innovative and very cool system for milking cows in today's world.
Right on. So what we're going to have going over a bit of an overview of the operation, some of the things, how they're managing the farm, and main reasons why, they went with VMS Batch Milking. So, Dr. Juan, can you just kind of explain a little bit more of the overview of your operation?
Sure. This is an operation in Central Texas, just south of Stephenville. And it's an operation that is unique from the point of view that is certified organic, but on top of that is also verified grass-fed. And it's grass-fed means absolutely zero grain. The operation for this particular parlor or batch milking system that we are going to be talking about entails 2,500 acres and 2,000 milking cows. The dry cows and the transition cows maternity takes place at an adjacent farm right next to this one. It's managed as one farm, but for this particular parlor batch milking that we're going to be talking about, it's 2,000 cows milking only 2,500 acres of land.
Right on.
The breed that we have is Jersey, Holstein, and Jersey crossbred. Not totally by design, but by default. We were raising some Holstein animals there for the other locations. We left them there. Obviously, the ones that are better adapted to this system have stayed there already for 3-4 lactations out of the other farm, and we moved some of them to the batch milking. And some jerseys that we have purchased on some that we were raising, and we're experimenting with sleek gene Holstein being bred into Jersey cows to create that F1. We're milking 2X. Like Jason said, it's a set schedule. Cows come in at 6 a.m. and we start the shift again at 6 p.m. and 2X for every cow. And it's divided in pens of 250 cows each in an open dry lot with shades system. And we have 22 of these voluntary milking systems, the DeLaval VMS 300. It's what we have in this operation.
Right on. And we'll get into a little bit more of how that's all laid out here in a little bit. Just make mention, if you have any questions please use the chat. And within that chat box, I'll kind of monitor that. And if there's anything that comes up, then I can bring that question up. So let's continue with that overview of the operation.
I mentioned already that these cows have a diet of zero grain. It's a combination of grass silages and small grain silages without the grain. You have to harvest it at pre-booth stage, and alfalfa and grass hay, basically. When they are not grazing out in the pasture, like during the winter time, they will be getting TMR made out of those forages. So there's no grain. Therefore, obviously, you're going to see production is much lower than what you guys are used to, or especially in conventional intensive milking operations, the production is much lower.
Yeah, we'll just kind of show that there. Yep.
Yeah, 45 pounds of milk is what we're seeing in this operation today. Because of the mix of cows and the diets, of course, butterfat is going to be 4.7, and we got a 3.4 protein. One thing that is remarkably different is the call rate on these animals. It's low compared to the standard averages for conventional herds in the country, and it's way lower than our regular organic herds that we own up north in the panhandle of Texas and Colorado. The call rate is much lower due to the fact that we're not pushing the cows hard. We have more, a little bit more tolerable. We tolerate a little bit more cows that are delayed a little bit on getting pregnant. But when we look at the involuntary culling due to mastitis and injuries and things like that, we strongly believe that this system of milking them has helped that call rate tremendously as well. When we look at involuntary culling on this system, it's lower than the other parlor.
Just back to the grass-fed, are you cutting every day in the summer, or are you stockpiling a bit to feed during the week? How is that, or is it just a bulk storage?
The TMR, so-called TMR that you see on the picture, is coming from haze that a lot of them are we purchase and we store throughout the year. We keep on inventory and we just mix daily. And because even when they are out grazing, like today, we have had a really warm February, even for that part of the country. Temperatures have been good. Grass is growing really well. So we started grazing earlier this year than before, but they come back to the pen and they get a little bit of this dry forage diet also. It's a combination. We target 65% of the dry matter intake coming from true grazing out in the pasture throughout the entire grazing season. But during the winter time, 100% of the diet is coming from this mixture of forages in the bunk.
Okay, good stuff. Let's get a little bit more into the actual VMS operation for the batch milking. So just tell a little bit, why did you guys consider VMS batch milking for this new facility?
Yes, we've been thinking about using the technology of the robotic milking into our organic operations for a long time. And we talked to a lot of people that are experts. We saw the systems being used in New Zealand when they graze, or Ireland when they graze. We evaluated the ABC system for using the robot in combination with how to graze them, but we could not get comfortable with doing it with several groups of cows. When you have larger operations than the ones that I just mentioned in New Zealand or Ireland, it becomes incredibly difficult to manage the grazing with a robotic system. Looking for ourselves, looking at the rotary robotics, we did not feel comfortable with that system, and we said there's got to be a way to milk them with the voluntary system, but in groups, that in a way that would allow us.
It's not in my file, would it be in yours?
Nope. That's, if you've given it to me.
Sorry, if
it's
you're on
immediately
there,
in
if
your
you
file.
wouldn't mind muting.
Okay, because that's the only one that I'm missing.
Can you mute that, Jason?
Yeah,
Or-
I'm just, maybe Mui, you got it? Sounds like it.
No.
Okay.
So where I was at is we were thinking about there's got to be a way to milk him with the robot, but allow the groups to go into the robots and out to the pasture as groups. Because obviously, as the cows are behaving when you have grazing, you're gonna make them behave as they're supposed to. The whole herd coming in to milk, the whole herd going out to grass. And when you have more than one group, that complicates things a lot. And with this system, it allows us to do that. 8 pens, 8 different groups going out to pasture that are not immediately adjacent to the parlor. Sometimes you have to walk them a half a mile to get to the pasture that you want them to consume. So if you were doing that on a true voluntary milking system, you wouldn't be able, because they will all come to milking at the same time and the robots will be empty. They don't. This system allows us to do that. And obviously, what is in everybody's mind, labor is a big issue. It gets more and more difficult. There's more and more challenges in different states, not only to find the labor to milk cows consistently and reliably, but complications with documentation and all sorts of things that probably most of you already know. So these two were the most important points that we had in our mind when we made the decision to try this system. So, like I said, our goals was how do we eliminate the labor issues on that particular task on large dairy farms of the task of milking? How do we make it consistent? And how do we graze and more than one group at the same time? So makes perfect sense. So we went and looked at a model that existed or a batch milking system in Italy that had 8 robots. And that opened our eyes and we said, well, this is doable at a larger scale. I don't see why it couldn't be done for 2,000 cows. Once we pictured and once we saw those cows being taken to a holding pen and how they were flowing into the voluntary milking system, we said, wow, this could be done at 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 cows for that matter. So we really liked the system, made sense for us. So we came in and started working with DeLaval on how to design it.
Perfect. So good segue. Let's get into a little bit more of the, design, but let's first talk about Dawn Dial. She is your manager there for Rancho Pepper, as well as your other operation up the road. Just quickly tell everybody what Dawn's role is before we get into the testimonial that she'll give us.
Yeah, Dawn was raised up in a dairy farm in North Dakota, has been in the dairy business for, I believe, 35 years. She graduated from college and went to work for dairies in Idaho. Then he joined Aurora 20 something years ago. And now she is the manager of that operation in south of Stephenville. Lots of experience, really good manager. And we asked her to tell us what she thought about the new system that we put out there in that location.
Perfect. So let's just take a couple minutes to hear what Dawn has to say.
Hi, my name is Dawn Dial, and I'm the manager here at this facility down in Dublin, Texas. We're milking 1,900 cows with 22 VMSs, and we are a pasture-based facility here. So the reason we chose the batch VMS system is because we didn't want to change up how we actually milk the cows. Talking with DeLaval, they gave us the flexibility to, okay, let's try this. Okay, we're not going to build a freestyle barn. We're not going to have voluntary coming in. How can we still utilize the VMS system for us to be able to manage organically and pasture-based, but still have the flexibility of having the VMSs to do the labor? This is basically a parallel barn with VMSs. They come in and they feed off both sides. So you got the VMS doing the job of the people, the human, and it's working. What would I say to somebody that's thinking about it? And I've even told people, in my neighborhood that, like, it actually works. I said, it's pretty cool. I mean, and I'm the first one to be like, hey, you should come see it, DeLaval gave great support. And standing here today, or sitting here today, they still do. I mean, they're up to help us with whatever we need. So they're actually here today, going to do some more training with us. So no, they're really supportive. And I'm not trying to sell your VMS either, but I mean, it was way better than anybody expected at the end of the day. It's our dairy and it's our business, but it's also a show piece. I mean, it's something to see. That's for sure. These cows are very relaxed. I mean, I feel they're more relaxed than any parallel I've ever been in my life, right? Oh, I would do this again. Yeah, I would do this again. Definitely would do this again.
So that was the video that was done last year. At that time you guys were at 1,900 cows, but now have got to that 2,000 cow mark.
Yesterday we were milking 2,100 because I keep pushing the number just to test the limit on the 22. And my perception today tells me we could milk 22. Because it's got a little bit of the mentality of like a regular parallel where you add cows or you take cows out and still finish at the same time. I know what I'm saying doesn't make sense because people are not the ones milking it, but you just reduce the wash up a little bit. Maybe they're taking a little bit too long for setting up wash up, and it could be reduced 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there, and we could milk the other 100 cows. I want to just one thing that Dawn mentioned about the setup and what you will see here. One of our biggest fear one of the fears that we had, that we thought that it was going to be at risk, because we couldn't observe the following thing really well in Italy, because there was only 8 of them and they had a person also, extra person working in that holding pen, is how well the cows were going to flow voluntarily into the robot and out of the robot with the heat of the summer in Texas, and it still gets cold, colder than what we saw in Italy and way hotter than what we saw in Italy. And we were concerned about that flow. And I was incredibly relieved when we saw that the flow is just incredible. It's amazing. Even in the summertime, it reduced, the flow is a little bit reduced. They want to stay under the fans a little bit longer, but it's still nothing compared to what my fear was, that we were going to be in trouble. They flow incredibly well.
Good stuff. Just maybe explain a little bit what we were seeing here.
So that kind of a fence that you see in the middle of it doesn't exist anymore. We had it when we were milking on one side while they were finished building the other side, but we don't have that anymore. We don't use it. So that's the whole, where the pointer is the way the cows are coming in from the pen or the pasture, and that becomes the holding area. There's a finger gate in the back that the cows just go through the finger gate, and they cannot come back, and but there's free flow into the holding pen, if you will. And you have 11 robots on the east side, 11 robots on the west side, and cows will just start feeding into them, and they go back out, both exits, exactly the way that the pointer is showing. They come back out, and then there's a sorting gate that is going to sort the cows that you need for AI, for preg check, for vaccination, whatever you need, health check, trimming, dry cows that you want to pull, is going to pull them on that little area where you have either a palpation rail or a single head catch gate for you to work on that cow. One of the things that you probably are thinking, if you have groups, and this was a little bit of our concern too, and you want the robots to be constantly milking that, not have an empty robot, how do you manage the cows from one pen to the other one? And the way that we handle that is the next pen is brought into the holding area when there's approximately 15 cows left to go into a robot from the previous pen. So yeah, those 15 are going to get mixed. But what happens, and later on we'll show you, Jason will show you, there's sorting gates in the lanes going back to the pen that put those 15 cows back where they belong, in the pen that they belong to. That way, cows don't get mixed in their bunk. They get mixed at the end of the milking of their pen with the next pen, but they get resorted. May not be very clear now, but maybe the slide where we're going to show that maybe a little bit clearer.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, we'll get into that. So just a little bit more about the holding area and what we have here.
Yeah, so cows go in, they feed into the robot, they get out. We go directly into the tankers. We don't have a bulk tank. We try to be very sustainable in everything we do. So reduce of hot water, having to heat water, having to wash another tank, another bulk tank. So we go directly into the tanker load. We have a flush system for the parlor that goes into like any regular dairy, goes into a holding lagoon, wastewater lagoon. And we have the catwalk up on top of it that allows us for cleaning and having access and for the support that we need in the equipment or the feed system delivering feed to the robots. May as well talk a little bit about that today. The feed system going into the robot, we are using right now alfalfa pellets. We feed very little. The average right now is about 1.4 pounds per milking. It fluctuates from 1 pound to 4 pounds per cow, depending on where the cow state is in lactation. The interesting thing, one of the things that blew my mind is we got ready to get going on starting the robots. The feeding system was supposed to be ready. It didn't work. It jammed. It wasn't delivering any feed. And they fixed it 15 days later. Then it broke down again. So we were on and off with feed or without feeding the while the cows were being milked for about 3 months. And the interesting thing, cows will just flow just as good as with feed on the robot while they were being milked or without it. We still use it today. We figure it out. It's working well. And we use it for target feeding, that extra alfalfa in very high quality. But the interesting thing is we did not need it. Is what we figured out by the system failing. We figured that the flow is really good even without the feed in the parlor, in the robot.
Right on. Yeah, and we'll get to talk a little bit about the startup a little later too. Just kind of make mention, there's always a lot of talk about the holding area and the size. This is you're able to flush this, so it makes it very easy, to clean, as well. And when those cows are returning, that return lane, when they come out of the robots, is also flushed there as well. Just talk a little bit about the ventilation, maybe, Dr. Juan, just on what you have there.
Yeah, we have a positive pressure with inlet fans and stir fans pushing all the air out of the barn. It's also part of the state regulation, right? For parlor, we have to have that positive pressure pushing all the air out. Because in the back, you will see later on, it's open air. We don't have that barn completely closed. There's only one return lane, like you saw, going into the sorting gate, and the installation crew that helped us put all of this together, the local dealer, Pet Outlet, have been incredibly supportive from the beginning. I think that that's one of the most important things to have when you go into a project like this, is make sure that the support is there for any little glitches that may happen, or for maintenance and support.
Yeah, right on. They're certainly crucial. We'll get a little bit more into what they do for you as well. And you just talked about that already, that smart selection gate that the cows then, if I was to turn around in this picture, that's what you would see, is that selection gate.
Yeah.
Put them into a sort area, or straight through, or back actually in the holding area if you want to. Thank you for the questions in the chat. I'm just going to time them a little bit in the presentation here when we're going to talk about some of those things. Let's get a bit of a bird's eye view now, what it really looks like. And just like you said, you're on the dry lot paddocks with a shade area in each group. But don't think this is just for this kind of operation. This can be a stall barn. Each pen could be a group of free stalls. We can set it up many different ways. We have our facility planning and design group that can help you with your retrofit or a brand new facility here. So yes, there is 8 different groups that we have, and it's important to know that for that time of when they go to the milking center. You have 2 feed lanes here as well, as you can see in green. So they kind of feed those 8 pens, those 8 paddocks. And then what we talked about is just returning cows back and forth, to it. How efficient has this been, with it? I think I'll just quickly go to where the selection gate is for returning those cows back to those pens. Just talk about the efficiencies of what that is done for you guys.
Yeah, so this picture is, like I was saying, the first sorting gate inside the milking system is just the individual cow that is needed for any procedure, AI, for breeding her, for whatever. But here is what I was telling you, when you need to resort that cow back to the group that she belongs to, because she may have got mixed at milking time because she was one of the last cows out of the previous pen that got mixed with the cow out of the next pen. and then she's gonna get resorted by this gate. Either she goes east or she goes west. So you have that first sorting gate right here. She needs to go, or if you brought in pen 4 and now you brought in pen 5, so all the cows from pen 4 need to go east, and then the next cows from pen 5 need to go west. So that sorting gate there is incredibly important. It just adds all the efficiency in the world because you don't have to worry about the cow mover that went to bring the cows in, forgetting about how closing or opening the wrong gate and mixing all the cows already when they're ready to go to the parlor. So he or she the mover brings the cow into the holding pen and don't have to worry later on about that. Incredibly efficient.
So just quickly talk about where the grazing is. So each pen has access to go out to grazing. And a question from was what is the farthest distance that a cow would be grazing and back to their pen?
Yes, the farthest distance is a mile. One way.
1.6 kilometers for everyone else in the world. Yeah.
One way. So what we try to do, the way we try to manage is the lowest days in milk. Although in this system, we don't sort cows by days in milk, but by default, it happens when you dry a bunch of cows out of one and then you put in a lot of the fresher cows in that pen again. Eventually, you will see that. But we try to graze farther away the cows that are lower production, later days in milk, and closer to the barn, the ones that are earlier in lactation. But it fluctuates from 0.2 miles or 0.4 kilometers, 0.3 kilometers, all the way up to 1.6 kilometers one way.
Okay. Good stuff. Even on the last, we talked a webinar back in January, we talked a lot about, labor, and you just mentioned it as well. Labor is a big thing, for your operation. So let's just talk about some of the employee roles that you have, that's within this VMS batch milking.
Yeah, and I'm going to add a little bit here. When we talk about labor and the difficulty of finding labor, I believe, at least what I'm more familiar with, east of the Mississippi, the larger dairies, we have figured out that skilled labor with visas, you could find skilled labor with visas perfectly well documented coming from other countries, but it's skilled labor. Difficulty continues to be finding unskilled labor to milk the cows. So this system precisely allows us to have skilled labor that will make the system work. So what we have is a cow mover. We call it a cow mover because that person is bringing the cows from the pen to the holding area, to be milked by the robots. But it's not just a cow mover. He's detecting visually, he's checking for health, he's checking for lameness, he's evaluating cows. And then that happens during the day and during the night. We have 12-hour shift for the cow mover and 12-hour shift for the herdsman inside the milking operation. Those 12 hours are shift hours, but they're not total working hours. The reason for that is there's a lot of downtime for both of them in between, because the cow mover brings the cows in, checks that everything is going well, has time to wash and clean some robots, and then he could relax for 10-15 minutes until it's time to go and get the next pen. And he has to be paying attention here to synchronize the timing to go and get the next pen. And the person that we're calling the first person here is the one that is inside the milking facility, working on the sorted cows, the cow that needs to be trimmed, hoof trimmed, the cow that needs to be dried, the cow that needs to be inseminated, and also has some downtime to come and also help clean some robots, wash the outside, maintain the parlor clean. So they also have some some downtime. So we have 2 cow movers, one in the day, one at night, 2 herdsmen, one in the day, one at night. And when you have the relief for each of them, and one of those reliefs is the manager of that particular site that is relieving the herdsman. He's managing 3 days and he's relieving 3 days. And outside of the robot, independent of the robotic milking system and the milking operation, you have a feeder and a person that needs to do the maintenance of the pens, cleaning the lanes, and grooming the dry lots, and in case of when it's needed, doing some bedding under the shade. So that's the total number of people that are operating on this 2,000 cow farm.
Okay, there was a question, how long does it take to milk one pen of cows? What's your
70 minutes.
that's their goal there, 70 minutes to get
Yes.
that pen of 250 cows, yep, through the robots. And I think there's a question there, about how many cows per, and we'll get to some stats. How many cows per robot can the robot go through? But it really comes down to the robot. Once a cow is in, the robot's doing its job. It'll put that cow in and out as efficiently as possible, but it's really up to these staff for the overall efficiency of the system for cows per hour, is making sure that they're coming up to the robots for those late ones.
You're absolutely right. Not only that, the timing on when to bring the next pen,
Sure.
it's critical. That's why that cow mover needs to have common sense, be a thinker, and be on top of it. Because if you bring it too early, then there's going to be too much standing time in the holding pen. If you bring it late, you're going to have empty robots, and that damages the efficiency. That's one of the reasons that I said that we can get to 2,200 cows easily, because I believe there's room for improvement on that particular aspect of the operation.
Any business runs well when you have the best people working in it. So go ahead.
Just one other thing is, obviously, averages are averages. If you are bringing in this, if on Monday you brought in 40 new cows that have never been there, that were used to be milked in a parallel, is going to slow down a little bit the average milking for that day. A little bit the next day, and you will not notice the difference the third day, even if those were cows that were never been milked in this system. Okay.
So this is just an overhead shot. This is from that video that we had done. And I think it's just pretty interesting that we're taking, this group of cows, obviously, that cow mover, moving them up the lane. And here's the returning cows from that video that we showed going through the sort area. They don't belong to this pen, but you can see there's a nice Jersey right here heading probably over to pen that she belongs to. So once again, these cows in this pen are waiting for their time. Once that group is up, then there's just some simple manual movement of gates to make sure that the system works well for returning as well back to their pen.
Yeah.
Just talk a little bit more about that sorting area. And, in a robotic facility, if you had 22 robots in a voluntary system, you're probably maybe going to have 6, maybe 7 different, sort areas. Now with this system, you have 1. Just talk about, how your group works that sort system a little bit more.
Yeah, so just give you a little bit of history. I've had a lot of experience milking in parallel parlors, in freestalls, parallel parlors with headlocks. I absolutely hate headlocks for herd health purposes, vaccination, and breeding. I think it's very detrimental to the group of cows that don't need to be caught that day. I love the system of the rotary. We also have some rotaries. I love the rotary because you could have the cow gets sorted, and you only mess with the cow that you need, not with the rest of the group, by sorting her out and doing the breeding or the vaccination. I love that. And when we were visiting a lot of robotic dairies, on in the voluntary milking system pre-stall, I couldn't get really comfortable with exactly what Jason just said. Having so many areas, um, I don't know exactly, Jason, how many sorting areas do you need per group of robots? And here in this system where there's 2,000, I believe you could go to 5,000 or 8,000. You could still have only 1 or 2 spots that you're going to be sorting and working the cows as they go through and they get sorted without having uh, many herdsmen or breeders in different places of your barn doing the breeding or running from one place to another with the semen or the vaccine. This makes it so much easier because it's the best system, in my opinion, to work the cow that you need to, that comes from the design of the rotary systems. Yeah, you could adapt a parallel to it, but it comes with the rotary design.
Yeah, so in your operation, you do have a palpation rail, for that as well, in a hoof trimming area, too. The other thing is just now you have one foot bath to worry about, as when they're leaving that area.
Now, a little bit more also of our thought process going through these. I absolutely love the concept of the voluntary milking system. The cow milks whenever she wants to get milk and only whenever she wants to get milk. And all the farms that I visited, I kept asking the question, but how do you do the bedding? Do you need to go up and push them all of them one side? And how do you do the food bath? Do you not need to food bath? Oh yeah, we do have a food bath at the end, and we run all of them 2 or 3 times a week. But so that means you're disturbing them. Yeah. So I wasn't that comfortable with it. And what I really like about this system, again, we talk about the breeding trimming, but only one food bath, and you manage the schedule. You don't have to change the routine at all. You just open one gate and they go through the food bath. You close that gate the day that you don't want them to go through the food bath. You're not disturbing the routine because you want them to go through a food bath, like happens in the voluntary milking systems that I have seen. And you don't have to disturb them when you are going to groom the pen, do the bedding,
Yeah.
etc. So I really like that.
Yeah, great. I see some questions are coming up just on some technical aspects. You're managing 22 robots, on the technical side. So you mentioned your dealership vet outlet, is your servicing dealer. Just talking a little bit about the relationship that you've got with them.
So I'll be completely transparent. My condition was I need a contract that involves maintenance and support, because we're not qualified for doing this. I don't want to become an expert on maintenance and preventive maintenance and troubleshooting these machines. And we work a really good partnership and contract with DeLaval for them to provide this. So they obviously partnered with the dealer in that area and expanded their capabilities on robotic milking, and they do all of that for us under our agreement. But this is a little description that Jason can do a better job than I can, because to be transparent with you, I don't worry about it today. That's the easiest way for me to describe it. So Jason and Nelson, the guy that manages the farm down there, know a lot better what is happening from that point of view.
Yeah, and it comes down to, everybody just decides where's the labor going to come to. We certainly want dealerships, to do the preventative maintenance kits, and they do them 3 times a year, and they try to do a couple, 1 to 2 during the week, just so that they're always there to pick up on anything. And the great thing about it is, if they happen to be working on this robot right here in the picture, and it's just maybe for a little bit of time, cow can't come in to get milked, it's okay. You got 21 others. In a voluntary system, if there's 1, 2, 3, 4 robots in a pen, when you're having a robot down for a little bit, it does maybe tie up a little bit of time for cows coming in to get milked. But I think as well is that everybody has that decision. Either I'm going to hire some labor to do the technical work, on my robots, or I'm going to use that same amount of money to pay the dealership, to do that kind of work. So in your mind, you made the decision to let the dealer, look after with their expert trained staff. Just talk a little bit about maybe the daily, weekly tasks, that you maybe would have for some of your team there.
Yeah, so we try to keep the machines clean. Our efforts is to try to keep them as clean as they are in this picture. And we do that by the way I was describing, the cow mover and the herdsman hose that down several times a week. And every so often we go in and do a little bit more of a power wash with soap and things like that. But the manager that I called earlier of this milking system is the one that is managing the alarms, and he's teaching the night supervisor constantly to manage those alarms, simple things that says this cow didn't get milk out completely. And if it happens 3 cows in a row, because the system will sort those cows in the sorting gate and put the cow back in the holding pen if she didn't get milked out completely for A, B, or C reason. But simple things like that, where there's an alarm, our people know how to take care of them. If not, it's a simple phone call to the local dealer, and they come in very quickly and support us with that. But it's very simple technical tasks that are being done. But like everything else, we keep learning every time that we see the dealer coming in and troubleshoot simple things. We keep learning, so we need to, we call them fewer and fewer times now. We've been on that parlor in all 22 for about a year, 13 months. So we're also learning.
Yeah. So let's talk about that startup. So I think we discussed November 2022 is when that first 11, got going, and started with 400 cows on that one side while they were finishing the installation on the other side that started up a couple and a half months later. Just talk a little bit about, I'll pull up the bullet points just on that transition that you guys found, moving your cows into the batch milking.
I'll summarize it by how we underestimate, how I have underestimated the incredible ability of animals, cows especially, to learn from each other. So I was very concerned and worried about, like I said earlier, about how the flow was going to happen and how difficult the training was going to be. So we moved 400 cows from the parallel parlor, had a lot of people there. We worked really hard. And our cows are incredibly calm, and the fly zone is very tight and very narrow. However, I was very concerned about how they were going to learn that. So we brought 400 new cows when we had the system divided into for that we were going to milk only on 11 of them. We're going to milk 1,000 cows for a couple of months until the other side was ready. By the end of the first week, the cows, the 400 were coming on their own, and we started just bringing 2 more hundred and 2 more hundred and 2 more hundred. And in less than a month, we were already at 1,000. I believe this system really allows the cow to learn from the other cow. And what we did the first 2 or 3 months is we will put a bungee cord up at front, move the cows that were new after they got trained, after we got the first 400 trained, so that they will not stay in that pen in that holding pen for another full milking of another pen and another full milking of another pen.
Right.
We wanted to divide them so that the mover and the herdsman would be very aware that they haven't been milked and help them, guide them to the robot. None of that is done today. We bring a new heifer that calf in the other side. We bring 10 heifers that calf that have never been milked here, and we put them with there, and we leave them alone. And we monitor if they are staying there for 2 hours, and it doesn't happen. They learn so quickly from the other cows. They want to do what the other cows did, and they want to go through it. So that is been the most pleasant surprise because I was really concerned about training and overall flow. So that very happy with it. When we have experience training cows in rotaries and in parallels, and it's
Sure. Yep.
definitely more difficult to train them in those two systems than it is here.
Okay. And before I just jump to what the last few points here, you did host a Dairy Cattle Welfare Council tour there at the farm there last year, and being there and talking to those people, they were still amazed on how relaxed those cows were in that holding area. And that's certainly a big advantage of it. This was brought up before, but what's attracting cows into the robots today? Yes, this alfalfa pellet that you see here is what's being fed. But yeah, there was 3 months of some issues that maybe actually showed us something.
Yeah. Yep, that's exactly what is happening. And we could run out of those pellets tomorrow and the flow will not be affected. Actually, in our system, because the diet is forage only, sometimes it could be detrimental because the cow that is there wants to look for more of that pellet and is delaying the entrance of the next cow. So that's why we don't feed some cows 8 or 9 pounds of it.
Right.
We wanted,
Yeah.
But it's also tied up with the lower production, perhaps. But anyway, that's
Sure.
not an issue at all.
Right on. There was a little question actually in the chat. Thanks. Feel free to keep going on questions in the chat. Cows per hour. Yeah, we say 8 cows per hour is what our average currently. We were looking at 7.5 cows per V300. And their box time is still just a little over 6 minutes. And it's interesting. We've seen some more data, those cows that, maybe giving, 22 pounds of milk compared to, 35 pounds of milk in a milking session. It's not a big time changing, but to really get efficiency in these kind of systems is, having cows wanting to get through those robots and flowing that way, having a good holding area, having good people, having that cow mover, like you said, bringing those cows up at the right time. It's back to the people and how they manage it. It's really what's going to work well. Remember, this VMS V300 robot has been designed to harvest milk efficiently as possible. So now it's up to the people to make sure that it works within the system. We talked a little bit about the milking times. You're milking 2x. Your shifts are 6 and 6. But I find it very interesting too, and you may talk about that. It's just how relaxed, maybe your employees are a bit because they do have a little downtime in the sense that, they're pretty much watching cows get milked. The holding area itself, this was an early picture where we had to gate it off to milk on one side. Well, these ones were almost ready to go. You've got room for those 250 cows. There was a question in the chat. We do 8 feet, almost 2.5 meters width. We want to make sure that we can get a little skid steer down there if there happens to be an issue of a cow. But cows kind of nicely go around the exterior because they want to get back out to water and feed. I don't think you have any issue with cows loitering too much, in that return lane around the robot area.
No.
And maybe just talk. This is a last slide for you before we get into some information on our next steps in our webinars and VMS batch milking. But you've told us a lot of great information. Really appreciate your being candid with it as well. But when we talked, if you're going to promote VMS batch milking to somebody, these were some of your main points, and just maybe review them again.
I mean, I've talked already about all these points. The consistency of milking, the issue of the difficulty of finding documented labor to milk cows, and the issues that come with all of it, and the risk that come with all of it. Those two are incredible advantages. The ability to be able to work the cows, like I mentioned, in the same way that you're able with sorting gates on a rotary parlor. The relaxed atmosphere that you see going on in the holding pen as they choose to go into the robot or not. It's a huge welfare benefit and it's a huge perception benefit. I think that we all have experienced the reaction of a visitor to a holding pen with a crowd gate, so-called crowd gate, and the reaction of the untrained eye to how that looks. It looks crowded. It looks stressful. It looks like cows are pushing each other. It looks that way to the um, non-trained eye, and perhaps to all of us as well. The relaxed atmosphere that you see happening in this holding pen is unbelievable.
Yeah, it really
So
is.
a lot of benefits, some of those benefits that I didn't know, we didn't know we were going to have, like how easy it is to manage the bedding in the pen, how easy it is to do the food bath, how easy it is to get them to flow through the system. One thing that
And just
we find it really interesting. I just mentioned this briefly because I just saw the data last week, uh, doing some research with Richard Wang, a graduate student from Colorado State University, working for Dr. Pablo Pinedo, analyzing data here. And we just wanted to see how selective are cows to go either to the left or the right robot or to the east or the west. Do they choose the same one? Do they? And the interesting thing he's going to show up at the meetings of dairy science this summer is jerseys are more likely to be random where they go. Holsteins are more likely to be selective and choose either the right or the left, or either the east or the west, or one particular
Interesting.
robot or another one. So it's going to be really interesting to continue to look at that data.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, I'll just go a question actually from the chat here. Do you know the economics comparing a large partially automated rotary with our teat spray robots compared to this? Yes, we've looked at that. I would say maybe some of your initial costs, it's going to be a little cheaper with a rotary instead of 22 robots. But if you look at a 10-year down the line, the labor savings actually starts to catch up. And then, there's becomes pretty close to even actually on this as well. Plus, we haven't even looked at the benefits of robotic milking and that relaxed atmosphere when it comes to longevity of cows and what that economical, change would be as well.
When you look at labor, one thing that I believe that is important to keep in mind is when you do the models, it's not only the salary, and it's not only one, it is the state. It is that you have to pay extra time according to the laws of the state, is workman's comp. And is one that is huge, is risk reduction, which is not easy to put into a model when you're looking at the economics of labor savings.
Yes,
Risk
sure.
mitigation.
Yeah, yeah. Another one, the question is, what would you have done differently? That's always the good question. And if you were to do a batch milking system again, is there some things that you may do a little differently?
I would have spent more time researching, and we are doing it now, and we may have to do some modifications, the ventilation system, the cooling and ventilation system. I believe that we have some holes on airflow and or temperature, and we're beginning to do some spot checking of heat humidity index in the summer and temperature of chilling temperature in the winter. I think we have some gaps there, and we didn't do a really thorough job in due diligence on the airflow in the parlor. When it comes to batch milking, I wouldn't have done absolutely anything different. Could we improve the heat stress management out in the pens? Yes. And like I said, airflow here, yes. But as far as the batch milking, I believe you could do this on a 5,000 cow dairy and a 10,000 cow dairy. I don't see why not. After I see the cows flowing the way they flow, I don't see why that could not be possible.
Yeah, and just a little FYI, yeah, currently we're at a 24 robot limit just based on, our system controllers, but we could see that this could be set up, in different pods as well for those kind of facilities, definitely. Just a question, because they milk twice a day, they do wash twice a day. And how big is the facility where the robots and holding pen are? Good question. I'll throw that back in the chat when I do look at the building plan, unless you know it off the top of your head, Dr. Juan, just the size of it.
No, I don't. I don't have it.
I'll answer that, Stephen, back in the chat there for you. So anyways, once again, I know we're at the top of the hour where I'm just going to give a little bit more information, but once again, thank you very much, for taking the time and also taking the time to travel to South Dakota next month. If you're in the US and you're going to the Central Plains Dairy Expo, they always have breakout sessions for different topics. DeLaval is sponsoring Milking Their Way, Producers Share Experience with Rotary Robots and Batch Milking. So Dr. Juan will be there representing batch milking. Erin, she'll be talking about her dairy, Jones Dairy in Iowa, with their 64 bale DeLaval E500 Rotary with their Jersey herd. And then Sam Schwartz from Rolinda Acres in Iowa with their 11 VMS V300 and their guided traffic. And just seeing, the advantages that they see for their systems and why they selected that. So come see us on the main stage on the 20th, and on the 21st, we'll be in another meeting room. The webinar series continues, and we will be listening to more global experiences with VMS Batch Milking. Robert Jensen from DeLaval will be presenting, including a 24-unit facility in Denmark that is going right now, plus other reasons why people are going with VMS Batch Milking around the world. You've maybe already registered for it. If you haven't, just go to our US and Canadian sites to be able to learn the events and sign up for the webinar. If you have any other further questions, then you can just come to myself or your local DeLaval dealer, DeLaval staff to be able to do that. I see Rob Pohl from our facility and design team has put in the chat. He was a big portion of designing this barn, and he says 280 feet by 98 feet. Put it in meters is the size of this facility. So thank you very much for taking the time. Thank you again to Dr. Juan Velez for joining us today. You'll all get a recording of this in the mail, in your email, and you'll be able to watch it again.
Thank you.
Lior, I see you've got your hand up. Did you have or maybe that was a mistake. Anyways, thank you very much, everybody. Take care.
Thank you. Appreciate it. See you later.
Thank you.